What is up, guys? Back with episode 2, Sappers Unscripted, Casual Bias, Brett Burns, and Brevin. Today's episode is going to be an absolute cracker. We're going to be chatting about the URC, and the non-Saffir fans are going to love this episode because we're going to be chatting about how the South African teams have struggled at the start of this URC. And I would like to know from you guys, why do you think that is? Why are we struggling so much in this URC?
I think the easy thing to say is, listen, we are missing all the Springbok players, and it's fair. Listen, it's tough playing without your full strength team, but to be honest, the other teams aren't playing with their full strength team either just yet, and we are struggling with the travel. So it's been a tough watch, especially as a Stormers fan. It's like a double whammy, sitting middle of the table, probably lower tier of the table now, having the Bulls up there as well. It's like a nightmare. It feels whack. It feels like this is not rugby heritage that we always talk about.
Has anybody checked up on old Damian Willems there? Because I wonder if he's still wearing his World Cup winning kit and if he's sobered up yet. Because at the Stormers we need him and we need him at 15 because Gelant is not quite doing it for me. He has too many tricks and it's quite annoying, to be honest.
And that's something that I want to get into because if we look at the teams like Leinster and Ulster and those Irish sides, they really have depth outside of their Irish players. But when we look at the South African franchises, the lack of depth is quite concerning. It looks like the teams can't get the job done. Even if they're within a sniff of a win, they'll blow it. They don't have the depth to get over the line. So what are your guys' thoughts on nations like Ireland having the depth, but if we look at South Africa, do we have the depth that the Irish have, or is it just a different type of, feeling? How do you guys feel about their depth compared to our depth?
Well, I think the problem starts at if we look at the Lions over the last few years, their coach is paid more than their players. So you can't really have a coach that's earning half your salary cap and expect to have a winning team when you're getting all these old oaks that should have retired already, and you don't really have the depth in that regard. But when it comes to a team like the Sharks, all these superstars, I feel like some of them actually think that, why must I play well now? Because as soon as all the Springboks come back, all the high-profile players come back, I'm just going to go sit on the bench again. You can't actually look at it that way and think that's the case. But the Sharks and Bulls, those are my two concerning teams because Sharks should actually be top of the table, not lifting everybody up from the bottom.
Yeah, I agree. And a big thing for me as well is literally the guys that we're playing when we have this injury crisis or when we don't have our South Africans in the team, the boys we're bringing in are talented guys, but they don't necessarily have the experience. So Leinster don't necessarily, if they don't play all their Irish players, the guys coming in already have a lot of caps for Leinster. So they play them throughout the season. They mold them into the first team lineup. It's not a totally different and rotated team every time. So, for instance, Johnny Sexton can't play, and then Sam Prendergast doesn't go into a new look Leinster team. He goes into the team with their full strength players, if I can say it like that. So he gets used to the system with that, and with that comes the experience and the ball knowledge. Where, for example, if we used to play Kate Voliter as like a backup fly-off, you never used to see him with our full strength Stormers team out there. And I think that's a big thing for us. So we have these talented players, but they don't necessarily understand the system and understand the teammates around them. And that is for all the franchises here in South Africa. I think that is a big issue, something that we have to figure out, especially because we say we don't have that depth. We need to create depth. It's not about buying more players. It's about building players in roles in that situation. That's just my point of view.
Yeah, like if we look at, for instance, the Bulls, and I'm going to slander the Bulls here a bit because I
It's fine.
think
Let's slander
if
the
we
Bulls
look at,
too.
yeah, so you guys need to slander yourselves because it's not looking good. But if we look at the Bulls, their team should be good enough to be, regardless of having the box, their team should be in that top six teams because there are players there like Marcel Coetzee, Ulrich Loh, Ruan Nokia. These guys have all been exposed to the Bok camp, you know. These guys, Cornel Hendricks, he used to be a Bok. These guys are all experienced players. They should be able to get the job done. And if I looked at the game against Edinburgh we played on this past Friday, I just saw a bunch of guys who were loose cannons. I mean, Marcel Coetzee goes in with his shoulder on Pierre Skuman, an ex-Bull player, and gets a red card, and he throws the game away. And yes, the Bulls showed a lot of fight, but we need Marcel Coetzee on the field. He's a good player, but there we go. He goes and gets a red card, and it's just these silly things that cost us. And like you said, Brett, with Gelant, and I'm going to use Kerwin Bosch as another one. Kerwin Bosch decides to run the ball out from the back when he has no support, gets tackled, turnover, and that's how Connacht win the game. They kick over for 3. And then the lack of goal kicking again, we all speak of. No one really can kick like Pollard, and Pollard doesn't even play in the franchises. So it's quite concerning. But another thing that's also concerning is why do these South African franchises struggle so much when we travel to Wales and recently Italy with Stormers losing to Benetton and the Sharks to Zebre. When we travel overseas, it's like we literally look like amateurs. And I want to get your guys' opinions on why you think that is.
Do you not think that maybe it's got a lot to do with Six Nations? So why the teams have so much depth is because they know that their international players are going to be out. They're going to be playing Six Nations. They're going to be preparing with the Six Nations teams. And then when push comes to shove, the guys that are knocking on the door, they are they become the tier 1 players, the first team players. So international players almost they shouldn't even be considered at some point because and then Stormers come or any South African franchise come and then they think they can we'll wait until Six Nations happen so we can be back at full strength. And I don't like that type of attitude. I'm not saying that's the case, but that does feel a bit off to me.
Yeah, I think because it's week in, week out to travel from South Africa to one of the countries when we play overseas, I think that especially has a toll on the body. You can't use that as an excuse every time. I think also the teams there that are psyched up to beat our franchises, just like we spoke about in the previous episode. We spoke about Tonga wanting to get the victory over South Africa. Everyone wants to get that victory over South Africa. Not that we're necessarily everyone's rivals, but it feels like a big win for you if you get a victory over South Africa or one of their franchises. So I think the boys are way more up for it, whilst our boys not so much necessarily. We love playing in our own country and stuff, but I think the traveling really kills us every now and again. But it's tough to see your team going up and you feel you're playing Zebra in in Palma?
Palma, yeah.
You feel you're gonna see a massive spanking of Zebra, but you don't know what to expect. You feel you can anytime your team can butcher this. So yeah, it is very frustrating, and somehow we got to start fixing it up. And especially as we just said, we're playing rotated teams. We're sending a big amount of rotated players overseas as well, because we don't want them to travel every week in, week out, especially with the Heineken Cup also starting soon. So it'll be interesting to see what our approach is for that.
100%. Like Jake White last year, in the first 3 games of the Champions Cup, he played a weaker side, and in the URC, he played his stronger side. And luckily, he escaped getting through to the round of 16 in that Champions Cup, and then obviously going down to Toulouse. It's unfortunate that we struggle with that lack of depth when we actually really shouldn't, because like we are a bigger nation than the likes of Ireland and that. So, and also with the traveling, I think we did this because of the traveling. We came to the URC because of that. And the time zones are better. It's not like we're traveling to New Zealand or Australia where the time zones are completely different. So I think there needs to be more of an understanding that if we look at those URC teams like Leinster and Scarlets and them, there are players there that obviously in the Six Nations, those main players go play Six Nations, and those guys will play their asses off because they know, okay, I want to be in the Test team. I want to be in that Welsh side. I want to be in that Irish side. And I think we've seen Rassie and Ninabo, who's now gone to Leinster, they like their continuity in what they pick. But players need to still play to be able to play for the Boks. There's always a hope that you can get into that Test side. And I think players need to start realizing that. But that brings me on to this next point. How do we see our franchises doing when the Springboks come back to camp? We know that they're going to return now in December, basically, and we're going to have the Bulls back with the likes of Kirtley, Moody, Van Staden, and the Stormers. Basically, their whole side comes back, and the Sharks' whole side comes back, except for a few injuries, of course. But what are your guys' thoughts on how we're going to start faring in the URC and the Champions Cup when these players are back?
I think it's going to be very, very interesting with the boys coming back, because I think the boys that have been playing now will still have a lot of game time, because you can't play a full strength team, Heineken Cup and URC. Otherwise, you're going to have to drop one of the two, which is more important to you. So when those Bok boys come back, that is almost just for the increase of your squad depth, more than just like strengthening your side as a whole, or like your first team players. So the guys that are playing in the URC, that's why it's so crucial for you to get as much points as you possibly can in the URC now, before the Heineken Cup starts. So you're missing your main players at the most crucial part for you in the URC, because it's a tough juggle. But I think obviously it will get much better. The Stormers getting back a ton of players. If you just look at the squad that we have now combined to the one we had last season, with all the players we're missing, I think we have about 12 players missing, which is absolutely ridiculous at the moment. So, yeah.
I think it brings back, not only does it bring back the fact that these are World Cup winning players coming back, I think it improves the team morale. I think it improves the team chemistry. I think it improves everything that you need to get back to on a winning formula. And regardless of if the players are going to play or they're going to play immediately or whatever, I think it's going to change a lot because of that winning culture coming back, that I must win at all costs because the world does not like us. If we don't win, we get laughed at. If we do win, we get laughed at. So either way, they have to. That's what they bring as a player. Like if you are a Warwick Gelant, for example, I'm using the Stormers. It's my team. So if you're a Warwick Gelant and you know Damian Willemse is coming back, the Oak is 25, has just won his second World Cup. This Oak wants his jersey back. So just the fact that they think they're coming back could improve it a lot. And I know that Stormers and Bulls are playing each other on the 23rd of December. So we need full strength so we can spank the Bulls again.
Brett, do you think the guys coming back from international duty, they are hungry again? Or do you think maybe this was a bit of a too long break for them?
They'll be hungry. I think if you look at maybe the age difference, like a Frans Malherbe has been tired for the last 7 years. I think a guy like Willemse, he's still hungry. He needs to show off. He loves the crowd reactions when he does well. Curtly,
I think Mani is very hungry because people have been starting to write him off again at the end of the World Cup. Of course, he struggled there, but I think the URC is his tournament. That is his main thing. He is massive for the Stormers. He runs the game, and you can see we are missing Mani in that back line to unlock the defenses with running, kicking, whatever he wants to do. I think he's going to come back very, very hungry, and that will make a massive difference in the attack we see for the Stormers, because we just look lackluster at the moment.
Yeah, definitely, especially
Yeah.
like Kurtley Orange. I'm excited to see him in URC again, because this is a tournament that made him a buck.
Yeah, great.
100%. But to quickly wrap up this quick episode, what are you guys' final predictions for this whole URC? Obviously, we'll get into it as the podcast goes on and the season goes on, but a quick early prediction of how you see the South African franchises getting on in the URC. Do you see at least 3 in the playoffs? Do you see 2 teams in the playoffs? Do you see us 1 team eventually winning? Let me know quickly.
So I've got it, and I always say this: there's rugby heritage, so these things will happen. Okay, this is not a prediction. I'm seeing the future. The Bulls will lose to the Stormers. Okay, that always happens. Okay, I think the Sharks will get better, but they won't be in the playoff stages or anything like. Their performance yesterday was a bit better against Connaught. They were way better yesterday than they were against Zebra. So I think the Lions will stay down at the bottom. And then Leinster, obviously, they'll be up there with Munster. But then the Stormers and the Bulls look very sharp this season this far. Okay, so they lost their first game, or so they lost now last weekend. But yeah, with the boys coming back, I'm very excited to see Villy, but they will not. They might place above the Stormers at the current rate that we're going, but they will not place in the grand scheme of things higher than the Stormers, because the Stormers are winning it all.
Yeah,
Right.
I have a South African team definitely in the finals of the URC. I think three years back to back having a South African team. I don't care who it is. Even if it's 2, I'd be happy. If it's another Bulls Stormers final, I'll be ecstatic. We obviously know, as casual bias would say, that there's rugby heritage, that Leinster won't make the final. But so we're okay with that. But I have a sneaky prediction that we might see a Scottish side either in the semi-final doing well or in the final against a South African team. I don't think it's going to be an Irish side.
Okay.
So what are you thinking, Edinburgh or Glasgow?
It has to be Edinburgh.
Guys, I said a Scottish side. I don't care which one it is. Both of them are doing well. So just let it be.
Okay,
Fair
we'll
enough.
let it be. But
Yeah.
as a wise man once said, this is a spoiler and not a prediction. The Bulls will beat the Stormers in the next game that they play. I'm
It's
not
just
saying
laughable.
overall. In the
This
next
is
game
just
that they
laughable.
play, the Bulls will beat the Stormers. And I will stand by that 100%. But to end this off, guys, it's been great chatting about the URC. Stay tuned for more episodes. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you guys soon. Peace.
Cheers, Mr. Delusional.